The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov. Chapter 28. The Hen and the Pacific Rooster. Persitsky the reporter was busily preparing for the 200th anniversary of the great mathematician Isaac Newton. While the work was in full swing, Steve came in from Science and Life. A plump citizeness trailed after him. "Listen, Persitsky," said Steve. "This citizeness has come to see you about something. This way, lady, the comrade will explain to you." Chuckling to himself, Steve left. "Well," asked Persitsky, "what can I do for you?" Madame Gritsatsuyev, it was she, fixed her yearning eyes on the reporter and silently handed him a piece of paper. "So," said Persitsky, "knocked down by a horse, what about it?" "The address," beseeched the widow. "Wouldn't it be possible to have the address?" "Whose address?" "Oh, Bender's." "How should I know it?" "But the comrade said you would." "I have no idea of it. Ask the receptionist." "Couldn't you remember, comrade? He was wearing yellow boots. I'm wearing yellow boots myself. In Moscow there are at least 200,000 people wearing yellow boots. Perhaps you'd like all their addresses. By all means, I'll leave what I'm doing and do it for you. In 6 months' time you'll know them all. I'm busy, citizeness." But the widow felt great respect for Persitsky and followed him down the corridor, rustling her starched petticoat and repeating her requests. "That son of a bitch Steve," thought Persitsky. "All right then, I'll set the inventor of perpetual motion on him. That will make him jump." "What can I do about it?" said Persitsky irritably, halting in front of the widow. "How do I know the address of Citizen O. Bender? Who am I, the horse that knocked him down, or the cab driver he punched in the back in my presence?" The widow answered with a vague rumbling from which it was only possible to decipher the words "comrade" and "please." Activities in the House of the Peoples had already finished. The offices and corridors had emptied. Somewhere a typewriter was polishing off a final page. "Sorry, madam, can't you see? I'm busy." With these words, Persitsky hid in the lavatory. 10 minutes later, he gaily emerged. Widow Gritsatsuyev was patiently rustling her petticoat at the corner of 2 corridors. As Persitsky approached, she began talking again. The reporter grew furious. "All right, auntie," he said. "I'll tell you where your Bender is. Go straight down the corridor, turn right, and then continue straight. You'll see a door. Ask Cherepennikov. He ought to know." And satisfied with his fabrication, Persitsky disappeared so quickly that the starched widow had no time to ask for further information. Straightening her petticoat, Madame Gritsatsuyev went down the corridor. The corridors of the House of the Peoples were so long and narrow that people walking down them inevitably quickened their pace. You could tell from anyone who passed how far they had come. If they walked slightly faster than normal, it meant the marathon had only just begun. Those who had already completed 2 or 3 corridors developed a fairly fast trot, and from time to time it was possible to see someone running along at full speed. He had reached the 5-corridor stage. A citizen who had gone 8 corridors could easily compete with a Bird, Racehorse, or Normie, the world champion runner. Turning to the right, the widow Gritsatsuyev began running. The floor creaked. Coming towards her at a rapid pace was a brown-haired man in a light blue waistcoat and crimson boots. From Ostap's face it was clear his visit to the House of the Peoples at so late an hour was necessitated by the urgent affairs of the concession. The technical advisor's plans had evidently not envisaged an encounter with his loved one. At the sight of the widow, Ostap about-faced and without looking around went back, keeping close to the wall. "Comrade Bender!" cried the widow in delight. "Where are you going?" The smooth operator increased his speed. So did the widow. "Listen to me," she called, but her words did not reach Ostap's ears. He heard the sighing and whistling of the wind. He tore down the 4th corridor and hurtled down flights of iron stairs. All he left for his loved one was an echo which repeated the staircase noises for some time. "Thanks," muttered Ostap, sitting down on the ground on the 5th floor. "A fine time for a rendezvous. Who invited the passionate lady here? It's time to liquidate the Moscow branch of the concession, or else I might find that self-employed mechanic here as well." At that moment, widow Gritsatsuyev, separated from Ostap by 3 stories, thousands of doors, and dozens of corridors, wiped her hot face with the edge of her petticoat and set off again. She intended to find her husband as quickly as possible and have it out with him. The corridors were lit with dim lights. All the lights, corridors, and doors were the same, but soon she began to feel terrified and only wanted to get away. Conforming to the corridor progression, she hurried along at an ever-increasing rate. Half an hour later, it was impossible to stop her. The doors of presidium, secretariats, union committee rooms, administration sections, and editorial offices flew open with a crash on either side of her bulky body. She upset ashtrays as she went with her iron skirts. The trays rolled after her with the clatter of saucepans. Whirlwinds and whirlpools formed at the ends of the corridors. Ventilation windows flapped. Pointing fingers stenciled on the walls dug into the poor widow. She finally found herself on a stairway landing. It was dark, but the widow overcame her fear, ran down, and pulled at a glass door. The door was locked. The widow hurried back, but the door through which she had just come had just been locked by someone's thoughtful hand. In Moscow, they like to lock doors. Thousands of front entrances are boarded up from the inside, and thousands of citizens find their way into their apartments through the back door. The year 1918 has long since passed. The concept of a raid on the apartment has long become something vague. The apartment house guard, organized for purposes of security, has long since vanished. Traffic problems are being solved. Enormous power stations are being built, and very great scientific discoveries are being made. But there is no one to devote his life to studying the problem of the closed door. Where is the man who will solve the enigma of the cinemas, theaters, and circuses? 3,000 members of the public have 10 minutes in which to enter the circus through one single doorway, half of which is closed. The remaining 10 doors designed to accommodate large crowds of people are shut. Who knows why they are shut? It may be that 20 years ago a performing donkey was stolen from the circus stable, and ever since the management has been walling up convenient entrances and exits in fear. Or perhaps at some time a famous queen of the air felt a draft, and the closed doors are merely a repercussion of the scene she caused. The public is allowed into theaters and cinemas in small batches, supposedly to avoid bottlenecks. It is quite easy to avoid bottlenecks. All you have to do is open the numerous exits. But instead of that, the management uses force. The attendants link arms and form a living barrier, and in this way keep the public at bay for at least half an hour, while the doors, the cherished doors, closed as far back as Peter the Great, are still shut. 15,000 football fans elated by the superb play of a crack Moscow team are forced to squeeze their way to the tram through a crack so narrow that one lightly armed warrior could hold off 40,000 barbarians supported by 2 battering rams. A sports stadium does not have a roof, but it does have several exits. All that is open is a wicker gate. You can get out only by breaking through the main gates. They are always broken after every great sporting event, but so great is the desire to keep up the sacred tradition they are carefully repaired each time and firmly shut again. If there is no chance of hanging a door, which happens when there is nothing on which to hang it, hidden doors of all kinds come into play. Rails, barriers, upturned benches, warning signs, rope. Rails are very common in government offices. They prevent access to the official you want to see. The visitor walks up and down the rail like a tiger, trying to attract attention by making signs. This does not always work. The visitor may have brought a useful invention. He might only want to pay his income tax. But the rail is in the way. The unknown invention is left outside, and the tax is left unpaid. Barriers are used on the street. They are set up in spring on a noisy main street, supposedly to fence off the part of the pavement being repaired, and the noisy street instantly becomes deserted. Pedestrians filter through to their destinations along other streets. Each day they have to go an extra half-mile, but hope springs eternal. The summer passes, the leaves wither, and the barrier is still there. The repairs have not been done, and the street is deserted. Upturned benches are used to block the entrances to gardens in the center of the Moscow squares, which on account of the disgraceful negligence of the builders have not been fitted with strong gateways. A whole book could be written about warning signs, but that is not the intention of the authors at present. The signs are of 2 types, direct and indirect. No admittance to outsiders, no entry. These notices are sometimes hung on the doors of government offices visited by the public in particularly great numbers. The indirect signs are more insidious. They do not prohibit entry, but rare is the adventurer who will risk exercising his rights. Here they are, those shameful signs. No entry except on business. No consultations. By your visit you are disturbing a busy man. Wherever it is impossible to place rails or barriers to overturn benches or hang up warning signs, ropes are used. They are stretched across your path according to mood, and in the most unexpected places. If they are stretched at chest level, they cause no more than slight shock and nervous laughter, but when stretched at ankle level, they can cripple you for life. To hell with doors, to hell with queues outside theaters, allow us to go in without business. We implore you to remove the barrier set up by the thoughtless apartment superintendent on the pavement by his door. There are the upturned benches. Put them the right side up. It is precisely at night time that it is so nice to sit in the gardens in the squares. The air is clear and clever thoughts come to mind. Sitting on the landing by the locked glass door in the very center of the House of the Peoples, Mrs. Gritsatsuyev contemplated her widow's lot, dozed off from time to time, and waited for morning. The yellow light of the ceiling lamps poured onto the widow through the glass door of the illuminated corridor. The ashen morn made its way through the window of the stairway. It was that quiet hour when the morning is fresh and young. It was at this hour that the widow heard footsteps in the corridor. The widow jumped up and pressed against the glass. She caught a glimpse of a blue waistcoat at the end of the corridor. The crimson boots were dusty with plaster. The flighty son of a Turkish citizen approached the glass door, brushing a speck of dust from the sleeve of his jacket. "Bunny!" called the widow. "Bunny!" She breathed on the glass with unspeakable tenderness. The glass misted and made rainbow circles. Beyond the mistiness and rainbows glimmered blue and raspberry-colored specters. Ostap did not hear the widow's cooing. He scratched his back and turned his head anxiously. Another second and he would have been around the corner. With a groan of "Comrade Bender," the poor wife began drumming on the window. The smooth operator turned around. "Oh," he said, seeing he was separated from the widow by a glass door. "Are you here too?" "Yes, here," uttered the widow joyfully. "Kiss me, honey," the technical advisor invited. "We haven't seen each other for such a long time." The widow was in a frenzy. She hopped up and down behind the door like a finch in a cage. The petticoat, which had been silent for the night, began to rustle loudly. Ostap spread his arms. "Why don't you come to me, my little hen? Your Pacific rooster is so tired after the meeting of the Junior Council of Ministers." The widow had no imagination. "Bunny," she called for the 5th time, "open the door, Comrade Bender." "Hush, girl, modesty becomes a woman. What's all the jumping about for?" The widow was in agony. "Why are you torturing yourself?" asked Ostap. "Who's preventing you from living?" The widow burst into tears. "Wipe your eyes, citizeness. Every one of your tears is a molecule in the cosmos." "But I've been waiting and waiting. I closed down the shop. I've come for you, Comrade Bender." "And how does it feel on the stairs? Not drafty, I hope." The widow slowly began to seethe like a huge monastery samovar. "Traitor!" she spat out with a shudder. Ostap had a little time left. He clicked his fingers and, swaying rhythmically, crooned, "We all go through times when the devil's beside us, when a young woman's charms arouse passion inside us." "Drop dead," advised the widow at the end of the dance. "You stole my bracelet, a present from my husband, and why did you take the chair?" "Now you're getting personal," Ostap observed coldly. You stole, repeated the widow. "Listen, girl, just remember for future reference that Ostap Bender never stole anything in his life." "Then who took the tea strainer?" "Oh, the tea strainer from your non-liquid fund, and you consider that theft? In that case, our views on life are diametrically opposed." "You took it," clucked the widow. "So if a young and healthy man borrows from a provincial grandmother a kitchen utensil for which he has no need on account of poor health, he's a thief, is he? Is that what you mean?" "Thief! The widow threw herself against the door. The glass rattled. Ostap realized it was time to go. "I've no time to kiss you," he said. "Goodbye, beloved. We've parted like ships at sea." "Help!" screeched the widow. But Ostap was already at the end of the corridor. He climbed onto the windowsill and dropped heavily to the ground, moist after the night rain, and hid in the glistening playgrounds. The widow's cries brought the night watchman. He let her out, threatening to have her fined.